Hello? Oh shit. Maybe that. And this. It's hot, but I'll wear it for a few minutes. Don't stare at my head. Um, it's been a couple days since I put up the last video. Um, how's everyone been? Um, I've been alright. Just not a lot of events going on. I've just been a lot of my time recently has just been trying to occupy it. Um, I felt a little bit miffed because the other day, I think I talked about it on a previous video where I was part of like a closing crew in preparation for a visit. And while I do agree that we should always be prepared for a visit, I heavily dislike the fact that you'll come in on a surprise visit and expect us to be in that same condition um, without giving us so much as 24 hours to prepare ourselves. Because we prepared for the visit and the visit never happened, and then just unlike a different day, like, oh yeah, it's gonna happen tomorrow, like just like unscheduled, it's just gonna happen tomorrow. um and fine, I agree that we should always be prepared. The thing is, um the nature of the nature of working in retail stores, you can't always expect to be at 100%, and I think it's a little unfair to judge us, if we have like a busy night that night, or if we just so happen to be understaffed one night, um, you cannot expect that kind of consistency without the preparation. And I feel it's a little bit unfair. The fact that they're gonna, I'm not here. The visit's happening today, and I'm not here. Like last time when the visit was supposed to happen, I wasn't scheduled to work, and I wasn't gonna work that day because, you know, I'd rather not be there for it. I'd rather be there for the prep of it. I enjoy being there for the prep of it. So last time I was working the closing shift, and I worked my ass off. I made sure that everyone else knew that what was going to happen, and I have no doubts. Like my I knew who I trust the people who were closing last night. They were like, we got this. It's not that busy. There's not a lot of stuff to do, but you just still, it's just you never know, and it's just really frustrating. But whatever. Um Anyway, I finally got around to where is it? Reading a couple of comic books I purchased a month ago. I was with my friend Mark as we went to Barnes and Noble, and I had been waiting to get this because I had been reading Saga, and he had like the first two issues, I think, or the first issue, and I was like, dude, you need to keep reading it. It's great. And so I lent him three volumes every time, and then he had my last three volumes, and I was like, yo, have you read them? Because I want to reread them before I buy the next one, because it had been out for a couple months, and he still hadn't given it back to me, and I was like, oh, I really want to read it. But I didn't want to read it without having the whole collection again. So he finally got around to reading it. On the other hand, he let me borrow his copy of volumes 1 and 2 of Sex Criminals, and I read those a long time ago, and I really like it, but I just didn't have the money for it for the next ones. So when we went to Barnes and Nobles, I bought Saga Volume 8, and this cover I think is very familiar to people, especially because this was the cover that was used for the I think it's Image's 25th anniversary or something like that. Oh, this part of my mouth, my face rather, is all dry and cracked. So if it's all shiny, because I put like lotion on it, petroleum jelly or whatever the fuck, just so it doesn't sting. So if that's what that looks like, because I know it looks like snot, it's not. Anyway, um, I just wanted to review that, and also I had been reading this. This is the first volume of Low. Apparently, there's only 19 issues of this, so I would say there's 3 volumes of it out so far. Um, it's a good book, but I'll get more into this later. First, I want to talk about Saga, because before I even talk about Saga, something else happened. Um, I think Utada's new album Hatsukoi comes out today or tomorrow, and either it got leaked or it was released, but Chikai, or Oath, otherwise known as Kingdom Hearts 3's main theme, got leaked or released or whatever early, and I was able to finally listen to the whole thing. And boy, oh boy, that's a good song. I like it a lot. I like the off beats in it. I didn't love it at first, but the more I listen to it, I like how somber it is and how it's about literally a marriage, and as soon as someone pointed out to me the theme between simple and clean, passion, and now don't think twice, how it progresses from the early stages of a relationship to being in a comfortable level in a relationship all the way down to marriage. It's actually really interesting. It tells its story on its own. It has nothing to do with the games. If you really listen to the lyrics, it has nothing to do with the video game. So I just think it's really interesting and it's telling its own story that way. But I listened to the Japanese version of because the Kingdom Hearts 3 themes have an English version and a Japanese version. I like the Japanese version a lot, so I can't wait to hear the English one once it's on my disc, which I think I'll be buying a second copy of online so I could play it day one. Because I bought the deluxe version over at GameStop, or have it pre-ordered, so I want a digital copy though. Anyway, Saga Volume 8. Um, I saw this, so the very first issue in this is the 25-cent issue one, where they're I'm not gonna try to spoil it, but this is the first. No, I'm not even gonna spoil it. Actually, here's the first panel. I guess if you're reading, or if you're listening to this, either you have no context to it, or you know exactly what's going on. This is the very first panel of chapter 43. I don't know if that's mirrored when I upload this, but it says "Welcome to Abortion Town," and I feel like that sets up just how on the nose, just how far on the nose the entire arc is, where Saga is essentially about a proxy war. It's about kind of a proxy. I guess it is. Yeah, I guess it is a proxy war. It's just it's about two factions who are not. I think the very first few issues describe that. I think the very first issue describes it as like the war has been going on for so long. The people who originally were fighting for it don't even care about it anymore. And I am quite recently I realized that I'm a big fan of like a story like that, where like what happens when a fight goes on for so long that the original people who are involved in it no longer care, you know. So, um, oop, um, aside from that, it's also kind of a weird love story between the main characters Alana and Marco, and recently I understand that it has to. I understand it has to tell like a whole story. Like I would say this is gonna go on for like at least 12 volumes. Um, it's been going on for a while, so I would say it's gonna go on for at least 12 volumes, which is fair. Maybe even more, but as time goes, it's getting a little less of an allegory on like not an allegory. What I'm trying to think of, but it's a retelling of like current climates in the world right now, like talking about like war and stuff like that. Um, but but now the similarities and the similes and the metaphors and whatnot is getting so ham-fisted that they're literally pointing out like this book literally leans one way, and despite the fact that I agree with a lot of the stuff that it's going for, um I don't like the fact that you're pushing it. You're specifically stating your the writing takes a dip, is what I'm trying to say. The writing kind of takes a dip, and aside from that, I feel like uh, there's some plot points in here that just I don't quite understand. I'm gonna reread them at some point to figure out if I missed anything, but it feels like nothing really happened over the course of these 6 volumes. I'm not saying skip it, but I'm saying that prepare to not have so much of a impact to the story. Um, I feel like there's a moment of there's like moments where it went on for maybe it also is affected by the fact that I'm reading them in 6 issue chunks. I'm reading them in the paperback volumes, which is a collection of the next 6 issues every single time. But there's points in here where there's like I don't want to say like I don't want to say like time skips, but like minor time skips, or maybe like like yeah, I would say minor time skips, or maybe even like major plot points where it would seem like things should go on a little bit longer, or things that should be explained a little bit more, where they just kind of skip over or just skim over. Um, I feel like it moves a little too quickly in places where it shouldn't, and it dwells on things that it shouldn't. It's got pacing issues, and I hope that the next set of issues uh don't have that problem, just because it's a little like I felt it actually in the last volume, in volume this is 8, in the volume 7. So chapter 42 was all about a place that we have heard of in a lot for quite a while in the book, um and we finally get to see it basically. It is interesting, but just the last few panels and the message that that's trying to send is like it's still vague enough, or it's still like not grounded enough that I could be like, okay, I see what you're trying to say, but it's still within context of the story. Whereas this one literally opens up with the first fucking panel. It's like, welcome to Abortion Town. It's a little too on the nose. It's rubbing against my forehead. So I wasn't a fan of that. But I'll say that I read it still because, I'm so sorry, the dog is like moving around. Um, I'll say that I still enjoyed it, but don't I feel like this shouldn't discourage you from reading the rest of the series, because it's still a pretty good book series. I still love Saga after this, but I just feel like the writing took a dip, and I hope that they find their stride again. I feel like this is like the midway fatigue, that it's hitting like a midway where it feels like the story's going on for so long, and you just don't know exactly how long the story's going to be. It reminds me of reading Why the Last Man, which was also 12 issues, which is why I assume that this is um about halfway through or almost done, or at least 2/3 of the way done, because Why the Last Man was 12 volumes. um I feel like because when I read Why the Last Man, once that story was already over, I already knew how much more of this story I had to read to find a conclusion to these things. The fact that it has an ending was a bit more satisfying than reading a series as it's going on, and not finding out how it's going to end, or not finding out how long it is until it's going to end. I was able to look at plot points and see how long does it have to before it needs to wrap up, so I can like kind of gauge myself on how much I should expect from this specific plot point. But like, there's some things here that opened up that I'm just like, how are they gonna affect the plot overall, or like what's the purpose of these things, or like why, you know. Also, because for people that read Saga know that it is being narrated by Hazel, which is the little baby. Um, at some point in the future, you kind of have you kind of know that at least one point at the end of the story, which is that Hazel's going to be at least living enough to retell the story at some point. um a lot of the things she says used to kind of mean something within the plot, whereas this time it's kind of like it just seems like flavor text and completely unnecessary. So I'm a little disappointed in that too. So overall, it's one of the weaker volumes, but I feel like it's necessary to have these weak volumes because you're gonna have a dip in quality. Hopefully that they rise back up again. Fiona Staples' art is still great. um I'll say that there's not a lot of set pieces involved in this 6 issue collection that um like it's a lot of it's kind of a little bit of soap opera ish, where it's a lot of like close up of people's faces and just people talking, um beside as opposed to big set pieces like it used to. um there's one there's one that I'm staring at, If you've read this, if you read this volume, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's towards the end, but mostly it's just people talking. There's not a lot of huge set pieces, so the art is mostly just of people. So that remains consistent. So hopefully they, again, it feels very much so like the lull in the story, and I feel like we're gonna hit a point where, um, the heroes are gonna get even lower and lower and lower, and before they finally reach the rising tension. I forget what that's called, but this is very much so leading towards the middle part of the story, at least in terms of tension. There's not a lot going on, is what I'm saying. But it feels like there's a new thing brewing, and I feel like, as necessary as it is, there could have been a better way to set it up. I just don't know how. So I don't hate it, but definitely don't skip it. I don't hate it, but be warned that it's gonna be a little bit boring. On the other hand, though, my friend Marcus also recommended me on Low, which is also by Image Comics. Image getting a lot of cool shit. I don't like to read a lot of the DC. I love Batman. I love Spider-Man, but I can't be bothered to read a bunch of those. I read a lot of like the one-shot comics, like Dark Knight Returns, Killing Joke, that type of stuff, because they're self-contained stories. I can't be bothered to read like the overarching Batman story because it's so much. Whereas these original series usually run for like a short amount of time, and I can read them um, in a short amount of time. And this thing is relatively still new. Again, it's only 19 issues. Is when I looked it up, it was still 19 issues. Um, and it's about, at the back of the book, says, in the far distant future, the sun's premature expansion has irradiated Earth, sending humanity to the lowest depths of the seas, hidden within radiation shielded cities, while probes scour the universe for inhabitable worlds. Uh, Basically, it's a post apocalyptic future where the Earth surface is fucked, everyone is living underwater, and we're trying to find a new place to live because we're running out of oxygen. Um, and the main character of the story, um, the main character of the story is this lady right there. Her name is Stell Kane, and I feel like if you're gonna write a story with the events that happen within this 6-issue arc, thank you, Charlie. Um, if you're gonna write a story with all the events that happen within this 6-issue arc, you're gonna have to write a very short story because I feel like so much happens within this 6-issue um volume that to keep doing that for as long as Saga, like I cannot imagine this going all the way up to here. I feel like if it goes all the way up to here, then we're running into a dead end, and I would just drop it. But it's still relatively new, and again, I've only read this one issue. Sorry, I've only read this one volume, so I've only read the first 6 issues. Who knows? But I guess the people who have read all 19 volumes that have 19 issues. Sorry, I keep mixing that up. Volumes and issues. I guess the people that have been keeping up with this story probably know better than I do. But I've only read 6 issues of it so far, and so far I think it's fine. I think it's great. Um, I just feel like a lot has happened, and I'll say that they're trying to I feel like it's been happening before, but ever since Game of Thrones have done it, people have been a lot more aware of don't get attached to characters. I feel like this is doing it at like a rapid pace where they'll introduce characters and just kind of like rip them away from you. Um, I don't want to talk too much about that, but I feel like um, we're running into a problem very very quickly here, and I like it so far, but I'm not sure at how long it's gonna maintain that propulsion. I'm not sure how that not propulsion. What am I thinking of? But momentum, propulsion. I'm not sure how long it can maintain that momentum of constantly, because one of the themes of this series, as far as I can tell, is the idea that hope is, it's kind of like being treated as less of a concept and more of an ideology. And the fact that the main driving force of the main character is just hope, and just kind of and using that to keep her moving forward. Um, I feel like this story is being told really, really fast, and I hope that it has a very limited run. Maybe 6 issues. Sorry, maybe 6 volumes. I would give it 6 volumes to tell its story. If it goes any longer than that, who knows? But then again, I haven't read the other ones, so maybe we'll get introduced to more characters. I know when I first started reading Saga, I wasn't sure where it was gonna go. Um, and I feel like that. I guess is what I'm trying to say is going back to this. This is filler. It feels like filler. I feel like there's plot points in here that could be um, progression, but a lot of it feels like filler. And I would rather a story be told in less volumes with a much tighter story than get all the way up to Saga Volume 8, where it's literally just welcome to abortion town. And I am not a fan of that. But I get the sense that halfway through the volume, they realize that we need to stop writing this filler. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I do enjoy maybe it's done on purpose, maybe it's not, but like each volume ends in a stinger. So each 6 issue arc has its own conclusion as to what it's trying to accomplish. I feel like Saga didn't do that very well because a lot of it is just filler, whereas Low, I feel like it was trying to go somewhere. So I enjoy it so far. Question mark. I'll definitely keep reading it. It's not. I didn't get the same. I didn't get the feeling that I'm gonna drop it like I did with Paper Girls, which, as interesting as it seems, just didn't feel like it was gonna go anywhere. So I'm sure it's a good read. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. So anyway, that's it. This video's gone on long enough. That's just all that what I've been up to. That's all I got. Thanks for sticking through this very long video. I'll make the next one shorter because it only went on for because I talked about 2 extra books. So anyway, that's it for me. I'm gonna sign out, and I'm gonna go play Captain Spirit, the Don't Nod game, which is a bonus episode from the Life is Strange universe. I'm gonna do that. I'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye bye.